everyone. Welcome to a special episode again. In this particular episode, we're going to be discussing sketchbooks and paper. If you like sketchbooks, if you hate them, are they a waste of time? Are they your life? Do you have to have a new one all the time? What kind of paper do you like? All that fun stuff. For right now, we might have a few people dropping in, but for now we have Craig Hallums from the UK. We have Michael Mastermaker, from New York.
That's okay.
And standing in for the month of December is Jenni Gregory, who will be my co-host for a few episodes. So welcome to the show, everyone. I hope you brought
thank you.
all your sketchbooks. We're going to start off with Craig first. What are your first?
Start off with the guy that has the bad habits.
What do you like about sketchbooks? What is your first sketchbook? Do you show them to the public?
Okay, so no, I don't show them to the public.
Okay.
I have a small stack of some of the sketchbooks I own. Those are the smaller ones, none of which have any drawing in, one of which is still shrink wrapped. Basically, I'm the guy who can't help himself in art shops. Going and seeing lovely paper.
Too, eh? You also have
yeah.
I love them.
These are lovely little books. And I'm sure one day they might have lovely drawings in. But for now, I just have a spending habit on buying these things and then continuing to draw on loose sheets of paper.
Well, what do you use your sketchbooks for? What is your main
honestly, at the moment, probably just wasting money.
I don't
you have a collector's mentality there, huh?
I can't remember the last time I put pencil to paper in any of these things. I used this one to tear a few sheets out to do some tiny illustrations.
Do they all have different paper in them? Are they all like
yeah, so I've got some basic cartridge paper, your moleskin ones. I've got this nice little Hobbit Lord of the Rings
that's
Hobbit
cool.
sketchbook, which has got sort of quite nice sort of almost glossy paper, I guess. But see, this is a prime example. I buy these things because I see them as a project in their own right, and it's a case of too many ideas, not enough time. And I think it kind of ties back to when I was on last time talking about time being taken up with sketch card obligations and sets and all that kind of thing. Every one of those books is an idea of a project that just hasn't happened yet. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with sketchbooks. Before that, at uni, it'd be studies, carry one round with me, draw things I see out in the street and that sort of stuff. And that's a habit I want to try and get back into. Especially working in London for the day job, having a bit of a commute, and there not being much around the office. I'm in a sort of part of London that's away from the kind of touristy fun area. So taking a sketchbook with me and getting back into the habit of just little studies, I think, is probably the next step on that one.
Cool. So every time you look at a sketchbook, do you have the memory of the idea that you wanted to put in?
Yeah. I know kind of what I want to do with almost each of these. The Hobbit one, for example, is going to be a bunch of portraits and weapon studies and architecture drawings from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, in that kind of illustrative style that's from the end credits of the movies.
Yep. John Howe,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I met John Howe and Alan Lee and sort of spoke to them about this idea before, and they were like, well, just go ahead and do it. Just don't think about it, just put pencil on paper. And if you I spoke before about being really precious about getting things right, and they were just like, don't worry about that. If that sketchbook is just for you, just fill it. It doesn't matter. So if they have that mentality, it's really kind of hard to argue. But there's also the kind of double-edged sword of seeing a stack of sketchbooks that have never been touched that starts to become quite intimidating.
It does, yeah.
What you could do is ask a kid to pick one of those. I mean, this would probably almost break your heart, but to ask a kid to take one of those sketchbooks, open it up, and just doodle in it. That way, the blank page syndrome thing, it's done and broken, and you're like, well, what you gonna do? it doesn't matter now anyway. So then you just go and draw whatever you want to draw in it.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a sweet idea. And my daughter's just getting to the age where she's starting to, hold a pencil or a pen in her fist and scribble. So I might, once I'm off the call, just take them downstairs and get her to, go crazy on a couple of pages. And honestly, anything she could draw on there is going to mean more to me than anything I draw in them. So if she does that, it makes it special. So yeah, I might give that a go.
Well, that's cool. And you could also, I don't know, put little notes in alongside of hers, and it makes like a little moment in time or something.
Yeah. I think
you would love that later in life.
Stop seeing everything as a product.
Yeah. So
do you have any plans in the future for those sketchbooks of yours? Are there any, I don't know, that are like almost done, even though you said they're all empty, but there must be one you've sketched in.
I think, to be honest, the stuff I've got that's sketched in, I'm looking around my studio room now to see if I've got any knocking about. They're all from my uni days and up in the loft, and it was all sort of far more pretentious stuff that was about trying to get marks. And I kind of keep them there almost as a reminder of what I don't want to do, and and to kind of give me a nudge every now and then, say, well, you're actually at a stage now where you are doing the artwork you want to do, and you're kind of doing okay at it. So I do find those useful, those kind of half-filled, badly drawn in sketchbooks. Like you said, they're kind of a snapshot of a time that I was in and a mindset I was in.
It's cool to use those. You remember the moment in your life at that time when you look at those sketches and things like that. Pretty neat.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I need to stop buying more. I've got plenty to get on with. I really do.
Yeah. You're stocked up, my man.
Yeah, totally.
I had a friend who bought too many books, like novels.
Yeah.
And I had another friend who bought too many video games. He would go on Steam and just like load up on games. And we were talking one night, and they all agreed that they weren't buying the books or the games. They were buying the idea that one day they would actually have the time to enjoy those books and games.
Yeah.
I think sketchbooks are like that as well. It's not, you're buying the promise of a future where you will have all this leisure time to sort of sketch away the day, and it never works out that way. But that's it holds like untold promise when it's in your hand in the store.
Yeah. That's absolutely.
That's really deep, Michael. That's just a little too deep.
Well, when we get around a table and start drinking, I've got some pretty deep friends.
Yeah. Funny enough, I had the same discussion about another hobby of mine with my little hobby group. I paint Warhammer models. I'm one of those nerds. So
that's awesome. No, that's great.
And then we're all kind of guilty of buying more kits and not keeping up with building and painting and playing with the kits that we buy. And we sort of said this year we need to just knock the purchases on the head, actually get some enjoyment out of the stuff that we've got, because otherwise the hobby becomes spending money rather than doing the thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with sketchbooks, and I'm making artwork. But
I've got like $400 worth of Dungeons and Dragons stuff upstairs and like 6 people that are dying to play, and I'm like, getting 6 adults with children together in one spot for 4 hours, impossible. Impossible. It just doesn't happen. People are like, what about Sunday afternoon? I'm like, what? Like Thursday night? They're like, at night? Are you insane?
Oh my God.
So.
Is there a particular kind of paper you really like to draw on, Craig?
Good old-fashioned super smooth Bristol board. I love inking on that stuff. Or heavily textured watercolor paper, like really thick, high-quality watercolor paper. Either of those two extremes, I absolutely adore drawing on.
Oh yeah, really? That's interesting that you like so much the two extremes. What do you use?
Funnily enough, it's the same mediums on both. So it'll be alcohol markers like Pro markers, that kind of thing, or India ink and Copic fine liners, that sort of stuff. So it'll be the same on both, but I just like the difference in textures you get, kind of the different way you can get blends or layering on from Bristol board to watercolor paper. Bristol board's really good for being able to, I've found, for layering up Pro markers, but when I put them on those on the watercolor paper, although there's a little bit of a risk of bleed sometimes, you get really kind of deep, rich, kind of smooth blends with them. So same mediums, but slightly different outcomes on each.
Well, that's cool. That's really awesome.
Mhm.
What about you, Michael? What is
What
your
about yes? I what is that? There's a truck by my house. Sorry. I draw in my sketchbooks, so you could see like
Ooh.
I tend to fill them up. There you go. Like
Wow.
I'm just flipping through them quickly. This is a recent one. It's a Illo sketchbook. And I apologize for the beeping. Hopefully it'll stop soon. But Illo is there, it's really smooth, like Craig said. Really nice paper. It doesn't bleed through.
What
This
is
is
the
all
weight? What is
I don't know. You know what? I don't even know off the top of my head. I didn't even check when I ordered it. I just sort of like saw it on Amazon on sale, and I was like, oh, that's what I want. And it's a combination of like watercolor, marker. I don't, like it's, you can kind of see there. Like I tend to just throw stuff on the page, shapes, and then try to turn the shapes into something in a sketchbook. Like I'm going backwards. Like this guy right here, this like robot thing with the pointed ears was just like I just scribbled in with a gray marker and then started building form.
That's
and this is to kind of get me outside of using like, I always go back to sort of ink lines, right? Like all the time. And it's
Really
trying
cool.
to I thank you. I try to get away from that a little bit. But like I'm always drawing. Like this goes everywhere. When I know I'm going to be away, I go and then I grab like 4 or 5 tools just from randomly around my studio. I have like all these, like coffee cups filled with pens, and I just grab like 3 or 4. A rapidograph is always part of it, and then whatever I got on me for the day, that's what I use. But like Craig, like my university sketchbooks, which were these basically were all comic book stuff. This is over 20 years old. So
but it still looks like, oh, that's
That's
gorgeous.
awesome.
That's
Yeah,
really,
thank you.
but that really looks like your stuff. You really have a style that's you.
I don't stray
Yeah.
too far from the vehicle, like from the, like you'd see those are the plans for the characters, weapons.
Oh,
And then like I would also, because I like the writing got kind of crazy. Like there's a lot of writing about characters and ship designs and just like random stuff that would go on, inside jokes. And this actually was never finished, which was rare because usually I did like finish them. I would go all the way through. I would do some like practice pencils. You could see that's like what my pencils look like for the story I was working on, and breakdowns and things along those lines. Like
Nice. Wow.
And this was from the 90s, so I don't even know. So really, really long time ago. And I would fill like every bit of the paper, like
That's
just
cool.
covered. Thank you. Yeah, even the front, like it's still kind of wrapped in bags.
That's the kind of stuff I like, though. I like when people are showing their sketchbooks and you see their little notes or their stories. It's I don't know. It's kind of almost like a diary sort of thing. It's a cool little thing to see in there.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing. It's like it kind of carries like a narrative as an object, and I think that's really lovely.
When I was in college, I was telling Ingrid before, like we started recording. I used to, now being like a fairly I don't want to say shy. I don't think I was ever like a true introvert, but I was, I kind of kept to myself, and I was into like, fantasy and horror and nerd stuff in high school. But growing up, like, and being like a, an overweight teen, like my sketchbook was my sort of entryway to social interaction with strangers, because at least in here where I'm from, nobody really picked on the kid that could draw. It would be like, oh, no, that guy's cool. He'll draw he'll draw you Green Lantern, or he'll draw you like at the time.
If you're in a band or playing instruments, they'll come after you.
Right. Well, but like even the kids that were like, one kid I remember starting with me, like starting to pick on me, and one of the guys in the class was like, oh no, he draws really good. And he's like, oh, could you draw me a Street Fighter character? I was like, sure. You want to Ryu? No problem. And then we became fast friends. So that's what I did. Like I filled my sketchbook with like, pop culture, a lot of Wolverine, Punisher, Captain America, all this comic book stuff because I was obsessed with it. And then when I got into college, where I was actually learning fine art drawing, charcoal, figure drawing, figure studies, and my one of my teachers went through my sketchbook and he was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, they're all of my drawings." He's like, "Yeah, it's all nonsense. Like you're just, he's like, you're just gratifying yourself." And he's like, "That's not what is." Well, I mean, I know all, but he said like, "That's great. You could draw Spider-Man. Like we get it. Like there's like 300 drawings of Wolverine in here. Like this isn't helping you get any better at being a draftsman or an artist." And then he said to me, I'll never forget it. This again, 20 some odd years ago. He said, "Can you draw a tiger taking a bath in a teacup?" And I was like, "No."
Wow.
And he's like, "That's what should be in your sketchbook." He's like, "Because you proved you can draw Captain America. You don't have to prove that anymore." He's like, "Can you draw a baby?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "A baby, just a normal baby. Like not a cartoon baby, just a baby." I was like, "No." He's like, "There's no architecture. There's no backgrounds. Can you draw a tree? Can you draw a puppy? Like a normal puppy. Can you draw one right now?"
He
I
was
was
a
like,
clever
"No."
teacher, actually. Then he was
Yeah.
trying.
And he was like, "That's what your sketchbook is for." He said, "This is to placate your ego." He goes, "This is so he's like, "We all want someone to tell us we're good, right? So you carry this around and someone looks through it and they're like, 'Wow, you're really good.' And that feels great. But sketchbooks are for learning." So he's like, "Have one that never leaves the house so that when you try to draw a baby and it's awful, you don't have to feel the sort of weight of showing that to people.
Yeah.
That's between you and your work. And there should be a book that you do your studies in, and you should be drawing from reference because it makes you better, and clip interesting photos and find interesting portraits of famous photographers of rock stars and movie stars and draw those so you learn shadow and light and facial features that aren't depending." Because he's right now you're drawing from other people's drawings. You're because Wolverine isn't a real person. This is pre-Hugh Jackman. He's like, you're learning to draw. He's like, you're looking at John Byrne and you're drawing John Byrne's Wolverine with like a little bit of a spin on it. He was like, that's never going to make you a better artist because you're not really building up a real visual vocabulary.
It's making you a living, right? It is making you a living right now, or at least
it helps. Yeah. But I mean,
helps,
honestly,
but it isn't.
Yes,
it doesn't make you a better artist.
No. And from like my sketch card friends, especially for many of the properties that we have to draw portraits.
Yeah.
It's the draftsmanship skills that I developed from using the sketchbook in the way that he suggested that really carried over to make me a better artist. And that for me is what I'm interested in, is being a better draftsman, because when I went back and started looking at the artists that I admire, they were all really, really great drafts people, like Alex Raymond, and Lee Falk and Hal Foster and all of those early Flash Gordon, Tarzan, Prince Valiant. They're amazing.
Was amazing. He could draw anything.
And I guarantee you they were using the sketchbook in the right way, to study how to put color on the paper. And that's how you learn. So I do have like 2 sketchbooks. I have one that that's somewhere hidden. Keep it secret, keep it safe. Right. And that's my sketchbook to draw things that I'm uncomfortable with. And I don't have the pressure. I'm not going to post that on Instagram, and I'm not using that as a promotional tool. I'm using that to learn and get better at my craft. And then there are those sketchbooks that I use for fun and games, because I think drawing should still be fun. And the other sketchbook I have is that, like, years ago on Instagram, I did like a one-page web comic, which was these characters that I developed. And I filled 3 sketchbooks with these characters that were inspired by like 70s anime.
That's awesome.
And thank you. I did one a day, every day, and I really didn't miss. And I held contests for them, and it had like a little bit of a following. That's what really helped me get established on social media. And I have 3 of these notebooks. How
do you mean you had a contest for them?
I had a international contest for people to draw the characters in their style.
Oh, sweet.
And they won original sketch cards of the characters and a poster that I designed. But I would put up a still image and then just write like in the caption like a little bit of the narrative of like kind of what was going on, but they were always like in the middle of the action, and they were kind of loosely tied together. It started as an Inktober thing, and then I just got obsessed, and every day at work in the morning I would do this. You could see it was always, I carried a pen, a gray marker, and India ink. It was like a Pentel yellow brush pen. So those were the only colors that I was working with. And then occasionally blue would show up, and whatever I had on hand. If there's someone had a highlighter on their desk, I would use a highlighter.
So I'm guessing that there's one commonality between you, Michael, and you, Craig, is that you both use markers a lot. And
oh yeah, yeah. Well, why did you start using markers, Craig?
Expediency, to be honest. They were quick and easy on sketch card sets, but then I just found it really intuitive as a form color. Before that, I used to watercolor everything, but watercolor's not practical for sketch card sets. You know, the turnaround we've got to have, sealing them, all that stuff. And I still love how watercolors look. And now that I'm stepping back from sketch cards for a little bit and working on my own thing, you know, that's something I'm going to delve back into. But pro markers are just so easy to use, and you know, if you can just nail the basics with them, you get really good results. And really satisfying results. Like, you don't even have to worry about whether they're good or not. They're satisfying to use. For me.
Yeah, I buy all brands, and I've gotten there's a store here called Five Below where everything's like $5 and below, and they sell markers, and I use them. They're good. The gray set of markers is $5, and they're great. Like, I haven't bought new Copics in a really long time. I started using them, like you said, for convenience because I was an obsessive doodler. So I couldn't doodle in class. I couldn't, like, while my teacher's lecturing, I can't set up, like, you know, watercolor. I mean, you could, but you get in trouble really, really quickly. Unless that teacher had a good sense of humor. But I could pull out like 3 markers and do my thing. As long as I always had a gray marker for shading, always. And then like a highlight color or something. And it was just so convenient. And they travel well. You know, they just very easy to just throw them in a bag and go when you're on vacation and stuff. So, I mean, I don't ever, I'm an obsessive doodler. So I don't, like you said, you don't film. I just draw all the time. That's never going to stop.
No.
Yeah. I tend to be a bit of a binge artist. So I'll go through page, like sort of stages of doing nothing, you know, getting really frustrated at myself, because art's one of those things that, although it can be a difficult process sometimes, I can't live without it. And those times when I'm not doing it, I really start to feel it, like in the pit of my soul. I know that I should be making something.
You should be right now.
Yes.
Right now, yeah, I should be getting
two things at once. Get on it
and get
Come on, draw.
And then when I am doing work, it's just like obsessively in it.
That's awesome. I mean, for me, it's how I deal with anxiety. It always has been for my entire life. It's just what sets the ship right, you know, no matter where I am. As long as I have a sketchbook in my, you know, that I can doodle while I'm waiting, I'm never bored, and I'm always occupied. So that's
okay.
A good
So
combo.
for Michael, it's pretty much for sanity reasons, and for Craig, I would say it's pretty much for your soul. What about you, Jenny?
I always love to draw. I always have a sketchbook with me, or if there's scratch paper or paper around, and I have a pen, I draw on it. I just constantly, I like to draw. I brought some of mine. These are some of mine. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you guys are like this, but I never draw on the first page of a sketchbook. Never, ever, ever.
Depends.
I don't know why, but it's just a thing with me. Now I'll paint on the
that's awesome. Yeah.
Like I'll do that. And all I did for these is just gessoed, and then like I'd use watercolor or acrylics on them. But yeah, it's funny because you guys were talking about markers, and it's like whenever I have my sketchbook, I always do watercolor. It's like I never do my markers because markers are so expensive. So I'm never going to use those. But these are some of mine, my watercolors. I don't know if you can see them. This one I
beautiful.
love.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
So good.
I was an idiot, and I put, like, you know, there's a seam. It's a double page, so you can't ever take it out and do anything with it. But I scanned it in and use that. I use a lot of different things. This was actually from a Kickstarter. This watercolor set.
Yeah, hold that up.
Sorry. This was from it's this little travel watercolor packet. They're colors, but they're on paper. And I can't remember who that is. They were like from an India company, I think.
Yeah, I have some of them
like
around
this?
here somewhere.
Is it like that?
No, it's like a little like booklet, right? Like they fan out in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wood. The one I have was actually made of wood, but the colors are kind of cool because they're really vibrant.
They're really vibrant. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a couple of different watercolor sets, travel watercolor sets, because I always have one, in my purse.
Oh, look at that.
That I bring
Beautiful
everywhere.
paintings, Jenny.
Thank you.
Yeah, they really
that
are.
one up. Hold that one up, Jenny. Hold that one up.
Yeah.
That one?
Nice. Oh, that's
This was when we were in San Diego. And we were just trying, I don't know, it was just an elevator thing, and I just wrote it down. So yeah, that was what that was about. And this was also in California, by a beach. I'm not much into landscapes, but Laguna Hills.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
beautiful.
That's a really great visual diary to have.
Look at that.
Well,
Yeah.
That's to me kind of what sketchbooks are. It's like your secrets in there. I mean, yeah, you can share them with people, and they're probably not gonna know what that particular thing was about or what the sketchbook is about, but that was a journey for you, or something that happened.
You look at that, you remember where you were, who you were with, what the weather was like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you located? Are you on the West Coast, Jenny?
No, I'm in Florida. My family's in the West Coast.
Okay.
I grew up in Laguna Hills, Southern Cal, but then we moved to Florida. We've been here for about 20 years.
Oh, okay. We're in Florida, if you don't mind me asking.
No, Orlando. We're right by Disney.
Nice. My father lives in Port St. Lucie, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So just curious.
Yeah, traffic here because of the parks and everything. It's awful. So yeah. I want to move back west, but crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. Like mostly what I do is comics, and then when I got into doing sketch cards, I didn't know where to begin, so I almost always laid out my sketch cards kind of things in my in some of my things, and then I was kind of playing with the Krampus one many years ago.
Nice.
Yep.
I like things with kind of a spooky bent to them. But yeah, I was trying to think. Now you guys had talked about having your kids do sketchbooks with you, and that's one of my favorite things. Is I was looking through some of these trying to find them, but sometimes my kids would do sketches in there, and I know some people are probably like, no, it's my sketchbook, what are you doing, your scribbles? But I'm like, this means a lot. It's fun to see. But yeah, my daughter, back when she was a wee one, Molly, she had done a comic, and she had a sketchbook.
Oh, wow.
It says,
how old was she when she did that?
So, oh my goodness. I would say probably 7, 8, somewhere in there. So, but
my daughter's
love to draw.
My daughter's 6 and my son's going to be 11 next month, and they both have sketchbooks, and they draw quite a bit. Yeah.
I think that's so important. Is shove a pencil in their hand, and let them draw. It's I don't know what it's like in other places, but here in Florida, it's like the arts aren't as supported as I wish they were. They don't teach art.
That's similar to up here. They were supported for the longest time, but now music and art are things that are much less supported.
Those are the first to go.
When my kids were young, there was actually a teacher at their primary school who had them do a comic book in their own style. They had to tell a one-page story through comic styles with panels and stuff like that. I thought it was just so cool that they actually.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
well, in New York, the arts are pretty well supported, fortunately.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, we're lucky right now.
Yeah, I know. May it stay that way. But yeah, so many kids don't know what comic books are. I mean, yeah, they see the movies, and to them they only see superheroes, but it's like comics are so much more, and I mean, you can tell anything with a page and with a sketchbook. So that's why I just think having a sketchbook and having access to that is.
It would be awesome if teachers actually brought back the idea of sketchbooks into schools, because now, especially after the pandemic and the times change, kids are forever on some kind of technology and stuff like that. The actual paper.
I have a lot of students that use iPad Pros and Procreate, and they keep pretty diligent sketchbooks, I'm happy to say. Well, they're just digital sketchbooks because of the expensive supplies. It's a one-time deal. And I know a lot of my students are voracious drawers, and it makes me very happy. But I was going to say, Jenny, you talked about comic books. I just did a whole bunch of comic book pages, and I think part of the issue, I don't know if you guys feel about this, but like modern comic books are so overproduced because they're all digital that, like, when we were younger, I don't want to be that guy, but when we were younger, you looked at a comic book and you could see the hand of the artist in that comic.
Yeah.
You could see that the lines were painted by hand. You can see like the color. You can see like even sometimes the lines weren't, it wasn't perfect.
Yeah, sometimes.
And you can imagine how someone made that, but like a modern comic book looks like it was created by magic. Like it's very hard for an 8-year-old to wrap their head around how a modern Iron Man comic gets colored.
And
you can't
in the comic books,
part that.
I'm sorry.
I think you're completely right there, Michael. It's not, you look at it and it's super slick and it's like a perfect product that's out there in the world, but you can't see the hands that went into it.
Not at all.
Like you say, for someone that's at the earliest stages of getting an interest in art, and they're thinking, I'd love to do this. This is what I want to do with my life. Yeah. And then they look at these comics and they go, well, that's unobtainable.
Yep.
But I mean, it's kind of the same. But I mean, think of like when you were growing up in the 60s and you were looking at the work of Jack Kirby. I mean, you're never going to get to that level, that kind of skill. But
it looked like it came from someone's hand. You could see in a lot of his work, you could even see pencil lines still there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at a modern Spider-Man comic, it's so digital that it's beautiful. I'm not knocking it. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely a compliment to the
those people they're fantastic artists, but I'm just saying it's intimidating. And I think that's why young people more and more, at least in my experience, are looking at manga, because it is black and white and it looks like something that they can do with some micro liners and some pencils. They can make something that looks like the manga that they're buying. You can't make something that looks like the X-Men without a really good working knowledge of digital imagery, which it's hard. It's not as aspirational as it was for us. Yeah. I feel like they're looking at other things as aspirational to inform their art. That's all. And it makes me sad because I love comics.
There doesn't seem to be quite the variety of styles of comics that there used to be. Although I say that as someone who doesn't really read comic books anymore, because as you were just saying, for me anyways, when I look at the highly produced, which are gorgeous, I don't get the same feeling. Maybe I'm looking for the past or something. I don't know, but I just don't get the same,
Yeah, that indie look, the black and white, handmade, like the original Ninja Turtles and stuff. That stuff was, or 2000 AD for my all that stuff for my friend across the pond. Like you can look at that, and you, I think, as a kid,
I think. I think a lot of it is if you look to comics as being the big two companies. And all of their top tier titles, there can be a certain amount of sort of homogenous house style across those, because they're the ones that have to be a safe bet. When you get down to some of the C, D, E-list characters, you get a certain degree more freedom there. And then when you go broader than that, I think that's where you start to see the real creative risks taken. And again, that's not diminishing the quality of those books.
No.
But you just see more kind of free creative spirit in independent comics, and like you said, 2000 AD still pushes the boundary a little bit on that.
Sure.
I find
there's plenty of artists working on creator-owned work that can just let loose.
Yes.
If I may be so bold to say, I find that for a few years, even not sketch cards, but trading cards as a general thing were a little bit homogenous as well, 10 years ago or something like that. And then all the independents came out and are coming out. So I'm wondering if maybe that will be the same for comic books again, kind of a resurgence of
I hope so.
Garage.
I think so. I mean, my day job is working with comics. We do comic book printing. So I get to see a lot of the independent stuff and be around with these independent creators. And there's so many people that want to do comics, and I think, well, that's one of the really cool things about digital stuff now. Well, not, I mean, digital with like print on demand is you can print one book of your comic, or you can print whatever you want, but it's getting people, so they can do a comic and then get it out there. So I think there is such a passion still for comics, but I think sometimes people don't know where to look or how to start. So
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That's a good point. But then you have to get your company out there a little bit more, Jenni.
Yes,
that's true. So
let everybody know, especially all those youngsters, they could actually they could create their comics and actually get it done, which would probably be pretty impressive for a kid. I don't know if I was a kid.
Well, we see there are programs where we print comics for people that do teaching, comic production for kids. So they're getting them in there. But I mean, most of what we do is for like the small creator. So yeah, I mean, it's out there. So
I mean, I know a guy who started on an idea of a comic, but had no idea where to go to get things like that in print. And I'm a long way away from that, but knowing that I could reach out to you and say,
yes, yeah.
Well, all those blank sketchbooks you got, Craig, start drawing in them and put a comic together.
I'll start getting those filled and then send them across your way.
Can she give a shout out to what is the company? Can she give a shout out here?
Sure, of course.
Kablam.com.
Oh, Kablam, yeah.
And then, and then we have a retailer site where all the independent people can list their comic books called indieplanet.com. So, I mean, that's what I like is we get to see so many things and people are trying to get out. So,
yeah. I got to say, as someone who backed a lot of projects on Kickstarter for indie comics, the production level, even of the indie comics, blows me away. How the quality of the coloring and the printing and the everything. And again, like Craig and I was, there's no way a knock to any. All I'm saying is for a child, right? Just for an 8-year-old. When I show my son, when my son goes out and gets comic books, and he reads them and loves them. He's not making the connection in his head that I can draw this. That's it. Yeah. That's the disconnect isn't there. It's almost like when you played a video game, like when those of us that started with Atari, it wasn't hard to figure out like, okay, it's a diagonal line on a screen and a dot versus like you can kind of wrap your head around even up to like Super Nintendo, how people made these. They're sprite based, they're moving. But when you look at a modern AAA video game release from like, you're like, there's 350 people that worked on this thing versus like the 5 people.
The days of Pong and when we thought those were the coolest things, and now you look at like Red Dead
but you could also understand that like somebody made it. Like you could wrap your head around conceptually. I kind of understand, maybe not technologically how it's done, but conceptually understand what it's done. And now we've gotten to such a level that like when a kid watches like, Avengers Endgame, like to look at that and the special effects and everything that's going on, like it's so complicated. It really does appear it's gotten to the point where the levels of production are almost like magic, where it's very difficult to tell like how they got to that point. And it's amazing. It's impressive. I'm just saying that for an entire generation of young creators, that has got to be intimidating, and we have to figure out like part of schooling is helping with that disconnect.
There's an age level where you can maybe inspire young kids with something a little bit simpler and like show them through like you were saying with the lines being shown, they're not completely erased and all that. Little kids can kind of get their heads around, well, oh yeah, okay. And then there's a point where they're older and they're like they want the glossy finished stuff, and maybe that's what inspires them. But I think they're different. There could be maybe a bit more for different levels and things like that.
It's that kind of ground level that gives them the step up to be able to progress to the super glossy slick stages. Having that building block there in the first place. And I kind of liken it to, I've got a bass guitar hanging up on the wall. I'm not very good, but I'm a massive fan of punk music, and that's attainable to me. So, and I kind of have the same mindset with artwork. I own a page of Sean Murphy's artwork from Punk Rock Jesus graphic novel,
Yep.
And I look at that, and the book looks great in print, but nothing compares to actually holding that page in my hand, seeing like the marks that he's made, the indentations on the paper, where he's corrected mistakes, or you can see where he's had sort of second thoughts on a particular area and reworked it. That's more valuable to me than, at least sort of in inspiration terms, than being able to see kind of like a super polished final product.
It's like the bloopers in a movie. It's like the bloopers reel in a movie. You're like, wow, so that's what it looks like when it's not all finished. And so it's very eye-opening, I find. Actually getting back to sketchbooks can be a little bit blooper reel in some ways.
Just going to go back around to that. That's exactly what it is. And sharing those things, hopefully,
I was going to say, you get to experiment. If you mess up, or that perspective's wrong, or that face is wonky, you learn something, and you put it down on paper, and you're gonna come back in a couple of years and you'll be, oh, I can't believe I thought that was good. But
other people, some of it, of course, some things, other people should not see, because you really do need sometimes that one book that's a safe space that no one will ever see. You do need that. But for others, maybe you can share them with other people, and they can see, oh, well, hey, it's not all that mysterious, really. Anybody can actually at least try.
That's partly been where I've crippled myself with these things, because especially with, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you guys, and we've spoken about it before, Ingrid, social media makes you feel like everything you make has to be some sort of product that's put out in the world to gain engagement. So it's hard not to look at this and think, this has to be a product that I'm putting in front of people's eyes. When really, in actuality, it should be for me to play with. That's all it should be for.
That's exactly what's stopping me from playing with this book. I don't know what to do with it. It has to be a perfect thing. I totally feel you there. You look at the speaking of paper, Jenny, what is your favorite paper to work on?
I like things with a tooth, because I like to watercolor. Sketchbooks, they make, the sketchbooks that are specifically watercolor paper, so they're a bit thicker.
Is that a Moleskine too?
No, I don't know who this
or
is.
Strathmore, maybe?
I am not sure. Oh, no, you're right. Strathmore. Wow, you are good. But yeah,
she's like
she knows her books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like having tooth. I'm kind of like Craig there. It's like, if you're drawing, I love smooth. It's great, when you have that. If you're sketching, when it comes to watercolor, I love to have that tooth. That makes it for me.
Do you have a favorite weight of paper, or it doesn't matter to you?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Yeah. If my drawing works out on it, it's great. If it doesn't, then it's the paper's fault. So,
that's right.
I feel like that.
It's just paper.
Does anybody else love toned paper? I love toned paper. I just can't find a sketchbook I love of it, but I love gray toned paper. I love it.
That Michael's usually has it. And then I hate how homogenous it is, but I mean, Amazon, you type in anything that you want, and chances are Amazon can get it for you.
You know what? I'm a lefty, and the binding, it's got to be very specific, the way the book positions, so that I can use it comfortably. Like a lot of the Strathmore toned books have the wire, and I hate that. I want a nice, I haven't been able to find one that had like the right, like Ingrid said, the weight and the whole package of toned paper that I really like. Even on Amazon, I haven't been all that lucky.
Unfortunately, there was someone who was supposed to join us who obviously couldn't make it, but they had sketchbooks made specifically for them, and I really wanted to hear about that, because that would have been quite interesting. And that makes me think of you, Michael, because if you're my son is a lefty too, and so
are you a lefty too, Craig?
No, I'm right-handed, so I don't even consider the ergonomic impact of these things.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah,
it's just there. Open it. Yeah, I really have no excuse.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would
So,
be really cool to be able to affordably have sketchbooks made for you when you have particular, when you have issues that you would like to address or something like that, or you can't get
yes.
the right paper, or you want tone paper, or you want it done the opposite way to the ways, or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, you could just use it backwards. I've done that plenty of times, but it's like, I don't know.
But
Sometimes
it
I'm
gives a
also a
lot.
hand dragger. I drag my hand on the page, which is bad. My teachers used to yell at me for that. But
Oh
since
yeah, same here, same here.
I'm
And
a
then
dragger.
you smudge all over the place, and oh yeah,
Yep. Yep.
oh yeah,
Yep.
that's
That's why
terrible.
I don't like pencil as a result.
So I'll
It's not my
start
friend.
with the last question before we head on out. Jenny, do you have any advice you would like to give to people who are watching, who are maybe intimidated by a sketchbook or think that it's completely worthless?
No, I think sketchbooks are very important. It's whatever you want it to be. It can be your thoughts. It can be where you're going to put story. It can be your therapy. But yeah, I mean, I think they're a blank page and they're there for you to do whatever you want. And it's a whole world just waiting for you. So
Mm-hmm.
start drawing on your sketchbook. Always carry one with you. Best
How
thing you
many
can
do
do.
you have, Jenny?
Oh my gosh. Well, right here, I probably have about 6, 7. So not all of them are full, but yeah, I always have one with me. But then I also do always have an iPad. So if I have an idea or notes I want, I jot down on those. So you can
That's
do a sketchbook too.
I didn't
So
think of that. I wanted to ask that. I
yeah,
totally forgot about that. But you were the one who really
absolutely.
got me into getting an iPad way
Yay.
back when.
Yep.
And so, what's your favorite program to use?
Um, I love Procreate. I am a big fan of that. I like Clip, I really do, but I don't know. There's just something streamlined that just appeals to me about Procreate. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, whatever. It's always going to change for people, but try them both out. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
So just draw. I think that's the main thing is draw.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. What about Craig? What about you? Any advice or something I haven't asked?
I mean, I think as we've established, I'm probably not best placed to give sketchbook advice. So my advice would be do the exact opposite of what I do with them, and just use them for their intended purpose, which is just to play with, pick them up and draw. That is the most important thing you can do.
for sure.
And I do sketch, but it's random scraps of paper and little post-it notes here and there and all that kind of thing. Or I can't even remember the name of the app on my phone, but it's almost like a visual notebook where I'll just kind of point with my finger and scribble down preliminaries and thumbnails and that kind of thing. But just do it. I spend too much time fretting and thinking about it and making it a whole thing. And none of that actually helps you develop. So just pick up your tools and put them down on some paper.
Do you use any? Do you do any digital sketches?
Apart from scribbling on my phone with my finger, none. I've tried it in the past. There's just something about the tangibility of real materials for me that I can't let go of, and it's not, I'm not getting into that whole traditional versus digital thing because I think that both are very different types of tools, and that's all they are. But for me, I like to physically feel what I'm doing and have to kind of work with and against the paper and all that kind of slightly more pretentious stuff. But I like to feel when the paper's working with me, when it's working against me, that kind of contention that you get with actual tools in your hand helps inform my work. So it's pretty much exclusively going to be traditional for me.
It does feel different. The slick, slippery surface of an iPad compared to the grabby surface of the paper. It is a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah,
that is for sure. Michael, what about you? Any last words for people?
Well, I do have an iPad Pro, and I have the paper like screen protector.
Oh, you do?
So it's not slick. It feels like paper. And I use it quite a bit because it's convenient and gives me the ability to do really quick studies and just practice laying color down.
I'm just wondering how you find time to breathe. You seem to be somebody who's really busy.
I try, honestly, I mean, to be completely fair, full disclosure, my day job is, I am a faculty member at a college here in New York. And that, while it can be intense at pockets of time, there is a lot of downtime where I have an office that I'm expected to sit in. And if there's no students that have issues or no grading that needs to be done or no committees meeting that particular time, I have the time to just draw, and I bring my sketchbooks and, I don't want to get into, I'm not going to set up shop and work on sketch cards there, but, I have plenty of time to draw a goblin on my iPad, then that's what I'll do while I'm waiting. There's a lot of downtime in my job. And remember, my job, is December 14th. I'm done until January 25th or so. So, and then in the summer, May 15th to like September. So I fill that time with art. That's what I do.
That's pretty.
And like Craig said, like, don't fret over it. Don't make it a precious thing. I think the most important thing about a sketchbook for me is working through, for young artists as well, is working through your thought process and how you approach art or design and articulating those ideas visually in a sketchbook, but also writing notes like we kind of talked about, and getting those ideas down on paper, because in your career, as you kind of advance in your career, more and more and more people are going to ask you questions about how you approach a problem or how you approach, your personal design process, your personal art process. And it becomes more like the draftsmanship is important, but the buy-in from clients or employers at a higher level becomes much more involved than that. And if you're doing that work in the sketchbook, you're more comfortable talking about your art and what you do and how you do it, so that it's not a weird thing to you anymore. And for young artists, that's the hardest. Like when I interview young artists or I help students and I say, talk to me about your process, and they just, go ashen. They're like, I go on Google and look at images. That's not a process. Like, that's not how do you approach the problem? How do you brainstorm? How do you come up with your ideas? What's your creative process? And sketchbooks inform that. They help us do that. They help us get used to talking about our art and in a meaningful way. And at the highest level,
helps you find out what it is you actually like to draw.
100% at the highest level, people aren't going to give you a lot of money without that component and you being able to, because they're buying into you, the whole package. Because there's, like in our community, there's hundreds of us that can draw beautifully. Like, it's not right. So they gotta connect to you as an individual and what you're all about. And that's why you're the Pokemon they pick.
Well, some of those sketches you were showing, even though some of them were like 20 years ago or something, and some of them now, it still looks like your work. So if you have,
you can see the style come through. Yeah.
20 different drawings of Darth Vader or something, it would be nice to know that, well, that's Michael's work, that's Jen's work, that's Craig's work, even though it's the same character. Whereas if it happens an awful lot that, you go through all these images of cards and stuff and you have no idea who did what card, because they are all exactly and precisely the same.
And that all comes from our sketchbooks.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's where you figure that out.
Yeah. And it's sad to say what I just said, but there you go. It's part of
it is, but and a lot of that was the Star Wars stuff, which is we don't have a choice anymore, because they don't want the artists. They just want, when I was hired to do Star Wars, I was hired to draw because I was inspired by the Marvel Comics series of the 70s. And the art director who hired me was like, I want you to do comic book style. What you do, draw Luke Skywalker, don't draw Mark Hamill. And now it's like, you're not drawing Luke Skywalker, you're drawing Mark Hamill. That's what they want.
Absolutely. They want absolutely
the likeness, or the likenesses. Yeah.
It's all been scrubbed out. They don't want individual style necessarily. Because their fan base doesn't particularly, there's a small group that appreciates that would love to have a cartoony drawing of Luke Skywalker, but a vast majority of people buying these cards are buying them to flip them on eBay. Yeah. And people, the common collector is really impressed by photorealistic paintings, which are beautiful on a card.
Really,
they're gorgeous.
really,
I'm not
really right. Yeah. And
I'm not taking it.
There you go.
It's a business. You got to make money. But like you said previously, there's so many great independent publishers and people out there hustling and making card sets that are like, here's 30 blank cards, do your thing. Just do your thing. And
That's
I love
the fun
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
100%. Never get tired of it.
I find it's like a visual feast, you know, when you have, like, for instance, Darth Vader done by, I don't know, 50 different artists, their particular style, using all the different colors, the different styles, and you can have something just amazing to look at, you know.
100%.
It's all exactly the same. I don't know. I don't see the point, but you know, whatever works, I suppose.
It has to. It's a business, right? They must be making money. So
I would like to.
Well, we'll keep doing our thing.
Oh my God, yes. I'm gonna let us all go. We all have doctor appointments and stuff. Yeah. I'd like to say thank you to all of you for having dropped in. We'll definitely be doing another sketchbook episode because
I feel bad. We never saw your sketchbook.
Yes.
Oh, well, that'll be another time.
Oh, come
on. Real quick, show us something. Show us something.
Come on, show us something.
Okay.
Come on.
Well, I got the blank one. There's nothing in here yet.
That thing is gorgeous.
Then I've got, well, this is one of the first ones that I ever had. This is from, well, let's just say it's the 80s. Sometime you don't really need to know. This was me just sticking things in and just drawing things, and it's just super simple. I was maybe in my 20s. I don't know if you can see. I was drawing.
It's hard, yeah, it's light.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. There you go. Are these people you knew? Are you drawing from life? Were you drawing from life?
Sometimes from life, yes. I wasn't very good at drawing from photographs, so I didn't really do that. I was trying to play with, this is one of my really early watercolors. It's just awful.
Oh, that's
wow.
lovely.
That is lovely.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I wrote stuff in here. I tried making notes for later, just sketching, and I was still in school, I think, or I had started with horses. Then I've got I used watercolor on this kind of paper. What is it? I think it's this was Canson paper, but it's really thin, so I used to play with watercolor.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Paper would really buckle. This is actually something that I'll be using again. I went back through all my sketchbooks lately, and I've gotten a lot of ideas. It's just loose. I do a lot of really loose, quick hand. If I have 5 minutes, I'll just take it out and super quick sketches of gesture.
That's awesome.
I like to play with quilting designs too and stuff like that. I really played with a lot of that. And,
shapes, yeah, that's great.
Things. And then I got my I actually have, I think I have 4 or 5 moleskins that I got over the years. And I've just played with color and I take this with me, and if I have time to use the watercolors, I do, and if I don't, well, I don't. Butterfly designs.
There you go.
Here's some more from on vacation.
So do you always have a sketchbook with you?
Look at that.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
Like flowers and there's all kinds of stuff here, but I don't do very many finished ones, and I'm just like with my cups of coffee. I never drink my coffee to the bottom of the cup. I never finish the sketchbook all the way to the end. But anyway, that's pretty much my stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, this was another thing I did. I don't remember.
Oh wow. Look how quickly and casually she just goes, oh look.
I know. I was like, wait, go back.
Beautiful colors. You're like,
I got a ton of sketchbooks here, but it's time to roll on out.
Okay.
Again, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and
thanks for having us. It was awesome. Always a pleasure.
To all of you out there will be another sketchbook episode, probably in February or something. And if you want to share your sketchbook, just get in contact with either Jenni or I or Lindsey. Lindsey will be back by then. Please send some words of encouragement to Lindsey. She's quitting smoking. She's got to stick on it this time. I'm not letting her out of it. All right. So thank you, Jenni. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
It was great to meet everyone. Thank you.
It was absolutely wonderful. Did we just leave? Is that the way?
I'll just stop the video and then.
Okay.